Hello, thank you for joining my channel, Making Knives Less Than 101. The reason I'm doing this is I want to document the process of my new hobby of making knives. First of all, let me start out by saying I know absolutely nothing about making knives. I did do some YouTube videos, did a little bit of research online, and then plowed forth to make my very first, or attempt to make my very first knife. Anyways, starting out, and again I should back up and say one of the reasons I want to do this video is one is to document my process through the steps of making knives throughout the entire process and future of my hobby, and secondly to share with anyone who might be interested on YouTube. So first I went to YouTube and I looked at a few different videos on how to make knives and then thought I'd get started. Rather than get too much information, I would get going and making my very first knife, which was going to be made out of a lawnmower blade. Matter of fact, the one just like this one here. And based on what I read, I figured I had a hacksaw and I had a file, and that ought to get me started. So anyways, I went to a used lawnmower shop, got myself this blade, put together a little template of how I wanted my knife to look. And you'll notice on there there's a little circle where the hole is, and I used the hole right on the blade. And I put the template on the blade, etched it out nice so that I could cut out the material to get started on my first knife. However, once you do that and you start cutting with a hacksaw, at least in my case, very quickly you decide that you don't want to make knives anymore because it's going to take you forever to cut the material out so that you have a rough form like this. So I had to figure out a different way to do that. Went back onto YouTube and saw some videos and decided to buy this 4.5-inch grinding tool with a carbide blade, which would allow me hopefully to cut that out quicker. And with this carbide blade, this guy right here, it goes through this steel like a butter knife. It cuts it very quickly, fairly accurately, still a little rough, but does a really good job. So then I'm back into knife making again. I don't have to quit. So once I get going, I take my sample knife, my cutout piece, I clamp it to the bench and start to file, much like they show on YouTube. And as a matter of fact, I thought I'd be making a filing jig so I could do it real accurately. But after about 10 minutes of filing, I realized very quickly that I would never be a knife maker if I had to cut all that metal down using files. It's way too hard, it takes a long, long time. I don't have the patience or want to do it. So I then realized that for this grinder, they make a grinding disc. And the grinding disc allows you to remove material from that blade very quickly once you have it shaped. And this is kind of what I ended up getting to, is here. I just clamp it to the bench and then take the grinder and grind it down. These are 60 grit plates, takes metal off very quickly, and I was able to shape the knife to a reasonable form using that method. This is what I came to right here. It's still rough, looks pretty good though, still have a lot of work to do, but when you get down to doing finer finishing work, it's really hard to hold this grinder steady enough to do a really good job. So this was $59 at Home Depot, and then I said, well, I got to do something else because I'm never going to get this knife to the way I want it unless I get some other help. So I bought this for $54 at Harbor Freight. Everything on YouTube will tell you don't buy this guy because you're just going to throw it away, and that's all probably true. However, I really thought that this particular device, even if I stopped making knives tomorrow, I could use around the house for different woodworking, sanding, and other types of projects. It comes with an 80 grit belt, and yes, it's far from ideal in making knives, but it only costs $54, and it does a real nice job of smoothing out that you can't do with this belt sander or this disc sander. So I've now got this down to 80 grit, down to this level, and I realized for me to finish this outside blade before I start the handle process, I'm going to have to get some other grit. So I've ordered on Amazon, I've ordered 120, this is 80 grit, I've ordered 120, 240, and 400. So that hopefully I can make this outside edge and this knife look fairly good. But so far from a lawnmower blade, I'm fairly happy with this progress. This hole was the original hole that was in the lawnmower blade. And there's another hole here that I'm attempting to drill. And I started out with the titanium drill, and it started to cut, and then it just stopped and wouldn't cut anymore. So I went to Home Depot and got a carbide drill, which they all said would be what I needed, and it won't even scratch this metal for some reason. So I've now changed the design. I'm only going to have one hole in here to hold on my handle, and we're going to go from there. So that's about it for episode 1. As soon as my other belts come in, I'm going to continue to finish this and put the handle on, and hopefully every week or two I'm going to update the video of my progress in knife making, and hopefully a year from now I'll look back and 2 things I'll know. Hopefully this will be the worst video I made, and they'll get better every time I come on. And secondly, this will be the worst knife I made, and hopefully in a few months from now I'll be turning out some better product. But thank you for listening, and you all have a good day.